Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis News from January 15th to the 22nd. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. We're going to start with some good news published by thehill.com. And while I did not see this spread across many mainstream platforms, that would have been great. Happy to highlight the facts from new data recreational cannabis laws linked with reduced demand for prescription codeine studying. So just happy to see this published in a larger outlet as well in the US. And so research indicates that rec cannabis laws substantially, not just a little bit, but substantially reduce distribution of codeine to pharmacies and overlook potential benefit to legalizing recreational cannabis. And let alone codeine, there could be many other opioids and potentially dangerous addictive substances that cannabis could help replace. And so story to glance, just to highlight, of course, the link will be below if you want to read the whole thing. But through 2019, nearly a dozen states legalized recreational cannabis use. New research indicates that these laws were associated with decreased demands for prescription codeine, again, a positive. And then codeine is one of the most distributed prescription opioids for pain in the country and has a high potential for misuse. Which begs the question, which substance has a higher potential for misuse? Prohibitionists will say cannabis without looking at the data that proves it is codeine. But good news, data showed a 26% reduction in pharmacy-based distribution of codeine in the 10 states plus Washington, D.C., while after the laws had been in place for 4 years, pharmacy-based distribution of codeine fell by as much as 37%. Holy shit, that's huge. And that's why Big Pharma lobbies so hard to keep cannabis illegal. Among prescription opioids, codeine misuse is especially high. Author Coleman Drake, an assistant professor of health policy and management at the University of Pittsburgh School of Public Health, said in a release. Drake added, findings suggest recreational cannabis use may be a substitute for codeine misuse. And so obviously, if people have the option to treat their pain with a safer, non-addictive alternative, people turn to it, and we see less addiction as a side effect. And so you can pause to read for more details about the study. Otherwise, you can grab the full link in the description. But I wanted to share this positive takeaway to contrast the unfortunate reality of what happens when you do not pass the Safe Banking Act. And this is just a complete failure from Congress to work for the will of the American people as opposed to Big Pharma, who pays them to keep the status quo alive. It's a damn shame. Their corruption runs deeper than we imagined. But because they did not pass SAFE, weed delivery driver robberies spike in Michigan. A rash of cannabis delivery driver robberies is taking Michigan by storm, unfortunately. I'm not going to get into this too much, but just highlighting what happens when you don't solve the problem, causing the problem to continue to exacerbate. And is there going to be a solution in sight? You'd like to think so. But another example, Christopher Norman, thank you for sharing this one. Southern New Jersey cannabis bank robbed. Literally a bank robbed. Because criminals know that they're holding cash. Senator Schumer Booker had 2 years to get safe banking done, blocked it, and then failed to get it to the finish line before 2022 ended. They're literally facilitating all this crime, which is just beyond shameful at this point. And he adds New Jersey dispensaries not likely robbery targets due to crowded stores, which might be a good thing, but New Jersey state chartered banks that allow cannabis banking are apparently targets. And sorry to say it, but political courage to do the right thing doesn't happen until a terrible crisis or accident on national news. But like, how much more has to happen until something gets done? And to consider that we've almost been in a crisis for the last 2 years, not necessarily a real one, but artificial based on all the shit that gets spewed through the media, like at what point might Congress want to work for the American people for once and give them a bit of a break? And so with that, another one, Joe Greisler thieves in Maserati, I think this is California, took off with $40K in pot. Cash from Santa Rosa dispensary took an estimated $16,000 in cash, as well as products estimated at a value of about $30,000. And so thank you, Mike of Heights, for asking this question to Don Murphy, who is a lobbyist in DC, from my understanding. Take it with a grain of salt, though, because he's only popped up recently, but he's become a lot more vocal, and so I do want to share some of his insights. And so do the leaders not see this as a problem? And you think, like, at what point would they not? They do, but some advocates and members also see safe banking as a vehicle and an opportunity to solve all of life's inequities and believe it's a SOP to bankers and MSOs. An SOP in this context, a thing given or done as a concession of no great value to appease someone whose main concerns or demands are not being met. And so that's why it failed last year. SAFE won't keep you out of jail, but it may keep you from getting killed, which should be enough to pass the Safe Banking Act, you'd think, right? Especially for those in Congress to hold it for a vote. And so the reality is hilarious, but this is just another prime example of the idiocy we're getting from politicians, because essentially Illinois has legalized for adult use, but they cannot use cash because the Safe Banking Act has not been passed. And here we have Mayor Lori Lightfoot, the clown, Beetlejuice herself, solution to crime in Chicago, don't use cash. Hey, Senator Schumer, Booker, is there any sort of conflict in her saying this, though?
I've heard a lot of rhetoric here.
Is it practical?
Soundbites, but not a lot of concrete solutions on how we get the job done and make our residents and our workers safe.
She's so crazy.
It every single day.
I think the follow-up is, and your solution is?
I just explained it. We have been in Little Village.
What's the solution to cannabis robberies, Lori?
Working with those street vendors, understanding what the nature of the crime is, making sure that we're doing things in concert with them to help them make sure that their money is secure, not use money, if at all possible, using other forms of transactions to take...
Politicians are so detached from reality. It's hilarious. So thank you, Semi-Evolved Mammal, for finding this clip. Just had to share it as a bit of a joke. Now on to New York, as again, more of a joke, but we push through these tough times. As Matt Carnes, thanks for sharing this. Top of the evening news. Shooting at one smoke shop last eve. So again, that continues when you don't solve the problem of passing safe. Seems they're stepping up efforts. But when you compare New York City smoke shops, one legal shop, again, as perception, it was a joke. Fortunately, they did it. But one shop compared to 1,400 illegal shops. It's infuriating at this point, but we continue to push through because fortunately these companies that operate in New York also operate in states across the country. So while it's one unfortunate market, there are other markets that will, pick up the slack from it. But how many unlicensed cannabis shops are in the New York City? Sheriff Anthony Miranda says the authorities have identified 1,200 at least. This one says 1,400, which is absolutely insane for the inspection and investigation. That's the first hard number I've heard from anyone in enforcement. So just to give you an idea, the NYPD says there were 593 robberies of smoke shops last year compared to 343 in 2021, an increase of nearly 73%. And so the fact that there are many illegal shops selling cannabis no doubt led to a bit of that increase. And so more information on just any of this development through New York, if you're interested, all the links will be in the description. But just trying to give you as much of a story of while shit looks terrible, the industry's still chugging along. It's a state-led growth story. And so apparently also the fine for selling unlicensed weed in New York is $250. So why would you not take the risk and sell unlicensed and illegal cannabis when you're just going to pay a tiny amount of your profits to pay this fine? Some of these places are making that on weed sales every half an hour, less than that. Unless they crank up the fines, the gray market is going nowhere. So it's, again, just highlighting how the politicians are almost facilitating this crime and this lawlessness. Well, it's been rather painful to watch these social equity experiments fail in real time, especially because communism never works in practice. It only facilitates more gray markets. I found this interesting one from Pakalolo YY and wanted to share as it's an update from Shortdata.ca. And so I don't know what this means. Could it mean shorts are covering because something's coming, or could it just mean that they're covering because they don't want to be exposed at these low prices? I have no idea. Just sharing what he found. But according to him, massive decrease in MSOS short positions from December 31st, 2022. So we'd at least rather see this than see the shorts increase their positions, approaching the smallest outstanding short position since inception. And so if you look at Shortdata.ca, just wanted to pull this up and we go to CSE, it does highlight the net change and the decreased percentage change in total value. So just pointing that out, and then scrolling down a little bit to highlight shorts have been quietly slipping out the back since 2023. Are you suggesting they are done? Again, we're not saying anything. He's not suggesting anything, so just wanted to give him props to highlight this. Highlighting publicly accessible data. It would seem there is a lot of money not comfortable being short at these levels, hence the massive covering. So again, don't know what this means. Only time will tell, but thank you, DGF, for putting this up there, because I hadn't checked the site in a very long time. So on to some state news, though. Good sales for Michigan to end the year, as Michigan cannabis sales set December record at $221 million. And so, again, happy to see that jump back up at the end of the year, as we anticipate. Michigan's record-breaking cannabis sales in December brought the state's total year to $2.3 billion. This total is 28% increase over the state's sales in 2021, according to the Green Market Report. And so considering Michigan saw a 28% increase year over year, despite prices going so far down because of so much competition, I think that's a positive takeaway, and hopefully the market can stabilize. And so there is more down here if you wanted to pause to read, but I think the main takeaway was that adult use sales set a record at more than $208 million in December of 2022, which is an increase of 54% over December 2021. So seems like a trend might be that families like to get high instead of drunk over the holidays. And first 8 days of CT rec cannabis sales bring in $2 million. So it took them 8 days with 7 stores to get to $2 million. I'm not going to spend too much time because there's a lot of stories and I don't want to make this video too long, but you can pause to read for a bit of a breakdown on the sales there. While we've got this one from MJ Biz Daily, new Maryland governor releases $46 million for adult use cannabis program. Now this sounds positive, but just wait until how long we might have to wait to see Maryland launch. On his first full day in office, Maryland Governor Wes Moore directed the state to spend $46.5 million to set up the recently legalized state's adult use cannabis marketplace. Voters elected Moore, a Democrat and the state's first black governor. At the same time, they voted to legalize recreational cannabis sales in the state November 2022. Now that law does not take effect until July 1st, and the legal market, unfortunately, MJ Biz Daily estimates could reach $1 billion in sales by its 4th year, might not open until 2024 or 2025. Why? This would be, again, a direct effect of focusing on social equity as opposed to just building an industry from the ground up and trying to get it going as soon as possible, benefiting all those in Maryland that want access to rec cannabis because they clearly voted for it. And so more information if you wanted to go through this all. I just want to hope that Maryland, gets their market up sooner than later, but we know that Maryland wants to focus on social equity. Missouri wants to be like Arizona and other states that focused on building it from the ground up and actually doing what their citizens wanted. So we will see what happens between Missouri and Maryland. Hopefully not too much of a kerfuffle. but only time will tell. And so with that, Trulieve, Georgia, we are proud to announce we have added a 4th location to the opening roster. Join us in welcoming Noonan, Georgia. And so it seems like Trulieve has 4 locations. And so no doubt, good to see Trulieve expanding their footprint and getting into some smaller, lesser competitive, but still dense markets before they really ramp up. And so from my understanding, there's still a committee meeting on the 25th of Jan that's going to determine when Georgia can officially launch the medical program, because there's been a court case for a very long time. Now, I could be wrong, but let me know in the comments. So from my understanding, they have these 4 locations, but I don't believe the market for medical, at least in Georgia, is launched yet. And so with that, Columbia Care implements efficiency initiatives to enhance profitability. And so I just wanted to read through this for any Cresco Labs and Columbia Care shareholders. Essentially, Columbia Care is providing an update and saying this is what we're doing in order to ensure the deal closes and to make the new entity as attractive as possible. And so one of the largest, most experienced cultivators, Columbia Care, manufacturers and retailers of cannabis products in the U.S., announced today that it has undertaken a number of initiatives to increase efficiency, decrease expenses, and transition to cash flow positive in order to further strengthen its operators and financial performance. Now, keep in mind, this is still a press release, so as much as they say this, we almost just have to trust. The company closes 4 unprofitable dispensaries in California and Colorado, 1 in Cali, 3 in Colorado, and consolidated cultivation operations in California, Colorado, and Pennsylvania to improve their adjusted EBITDA contribution. In addition, the company has decreased corporate headcount by approximately 25%. As a result, the company expects to show a sustained improvement in its long-term expense ratio as well as a decrease in its cash burn. And excluding the impact of today's announced changes, Columbia Care ended 2022 with more than $48 million in cash on the balance sheet, highlighting a free cash flow burn rate of less than $2 million in the 4th quarter, a sequential improvement of approximately $30 million. So not bad, could be better, but also could be worse. Now, the main thing though, as a Cresco Lab shareholder, is I want to see Columbia Care taking steps now to cut costs so that the new combined entity can have the best shot possible at competing with the other larger MSOs as well. And so the main thing is that the deal, from a source I shared in my last video, Andrew George, my understanding is the deal has to close or is supposed to close by the end of March 2023, and if it for some reason doesn't, they have 90 days that they can extend. But at least by that time, we're going to have an answer whether they combine and whether the deal goes through. It seems like signs are pointing to yes, and they're working towards it. You can pause read for a bit more info, but just wanted to provide that update. And so with this, we've got Verano announcing the opening of Mauve Navarre, the company's 63rd Florida location. So good to see Verano, much like Air Wellness, and I think it's Curaleaf, consistently continuing to open more locations, as Mauve is the first medical cannabis dispensary in Navarre, a town with a population of nearly 40,000. So good, seems like that's going to be a Mauve exclusive location. Mauve Navarre is located at 6863 Navarre Parkway, a busy thoroughfare with an average daily traffic count of 37,500 vehicles. And Verano's active operations now span 13 states, comprised of 121 dispensaries and 14 cultivation, processing facilities of more than 1 million square feet of cultivation capacity. And so again, it's not advice, take it with a grain of salt, but more information down here if you wanted to pause to read. Essentially highlighting the Florida market, which we're going to get to though. So off some medical cannabis use for this past week. No dispensations were approved, so it seems like this was for Verano maybe last week that they... Or when did they do this? Maybe, 19. So it probably opened it last week. Mind you, we look at the qualified patient counts. This increased up to 786,222, which represents a weekly increase of 2,806, so almost 3,000 week over week, which we do like to see when the numbers are that high. But main thing as well, we look at the dispensations for MSOs in the state from January 13th to the 19th. We see all the MSOs in the state. We see the number of dispensing active locations that they have in operation right now. And then we can see the number of milligrams of THC sold, milligrams of CBD sold, and ounces of smokable flower. And so all the data is here. I do try to keep track of this one and post it on my weekend video every week. But thank you, Pierre Gilles, as well, for making this Florida flower market share comp sheet that's easily accessible and digestible. So taking in the data over time, he has tracked it month over month since 2021 as well. So thank you, Pierre, for doing this work. But it seems Trulieve is number 1. Curaleaf got back up to number 2. Verano jumped back up to number 3, and Air Wellness, which was number 2 last week, back down to number 4. So it's getting very competitive. Or you know what? It doesn't seem like they managed to hold that. And so what I shared in my last week's video might not have been accurate, but hey, this is as of January 20th. And so my apologies. I think last week's video, one of them, Air was as close to number 2. Maybe he's fixed it, but so I guess he might have been wrong when he first did it. So my apologies for that if any of the data I didn't give you is correct. I'm doing my best to give you accurate info. But then we got Certera Wellness, Grow Healthy, Fluent, and then Sunnyside in here. So if you want to just pause to look through that. So with that, another update from Florida, though. Thank you, Cannasseurs.io or .io for sharing this one, as Florida Adult Use Cannabis Ballot Initiative nears 150,000 out of the necessary 891,589 signatures needed. So far, they're at 16.6%, and I do believe they need this before 2024. And so this is the link that he pulled it from, but this is just the picture that I wanted to share. So seems like right now they're at 148,415. Needed to get to 222,000, but of course statewide by the end by 2024, they need to get to 891,589. Now, that's from my best understanding. If I'm wrong or you know more, let me know in the comments. But moving on to some other markets, Delaware lawmakers file again for cannabis legalization regulation. So another effort trying to take place here. 2 bills were filed on Friday that would legalize and regulate recreational cannabis for adults in Delaware. And while they've made many attempts in the past, it seems like anything out of the Biden state doesn't want to be cannabis friendly. But House Bill 1 would remove all penalties for possession of a personal use amount of cannabis for individuals who are 21 and older. And so you can pause to read for more information on Bill 1 as they break it down a little further here, while Bill number 2 would create a legal framework to regulate the growth, obviously adult use market, that's what we like to see, sale and possession of cannabis, and provide opportunities for small businesses to be licensed in the areas. That's how you do it. Thanks, Delaware, for looking like you're making sense. It would also ensure that people have access to this new market. And so more information if you wanted to pause here about House Bill 2. And then main takeaway, House Bill 2 has been assigned to the House Revenue and Finance Committee and will be heard on Tuesday at noon, which would have been this upcoming Tuesday, I believe. And then House Bill 1 has been assigned to the House Health and Human Development Committee and will be heard on Wednesday at 11 a.m. And so how new is this article? From 21 hours ago, so yeah, likely next week. So hopefully I will provide an update, but good to see more states getting back into this effort. While another one, Minnesota, providing an update. Thanks, Todd, for sharing. Minnesota cannabis legalization bill clears second House committee. So they got 10 more to go, but this comes about a week after the bill advanced through the first House committee, Commerce, Finance, and Policy Committee. So link below if you want to read more on that. But just providing some other updates before we finish off. Normal, Missouri, 3,500 plus cannabis records expunged. According to the Missouri Office of State Courts Administrator, as of January 19th, this many expungements have been granted in Missouri courts. And so only a week earlier, just 2,340 expungements had been granted. This means that in a single week, they expunged 1,178 additional expungements recorded by OCA. So more information, OSCA, my apologies. And so for more information to break down here, but just to highlight people getting their lives back in Missouri as they're seeing the benefits of cannabis reform and slowly but surely getting their ball rolling. And so a few other stories out of New Jersey. As the New Jersey Senate Committee approves bills to let cannabis businesses claim state tax deductions as a partial 280E workaround. So we love to see this out of states. We saw Washington first, New Jersey trying in whatever ways they can to help small businesses in their own jurisdiction, which is essentially their jobs. And so a New Jersey Senate committee approved a pair of bills on Thursday that would allow licensed cannabis businesses to deduct certain expenses on their state tax returns, a partial remedy, as the industry continues to be blocked from making federal deductions under Internal Revenue Service Code, known as 280E, because of incompetent politicians that work for multinational corporations and put their interests first as opposed to the will of the American people. Because we know the people want cannabis legalized, we know Big Pharma doesn't. When it comes to federal tax policy, those businesses would still be subject to IRS 280 code, the federal level, unfortunately, which precludes entities that illegally sell Schedule 1 or 2 drugs from making key tax deductions in their federal filings. But if the New Jersey proposal is enacted, the licensed cannabis industry could at least see some state level relief. So again, it doesn't change much at the federal level, but it gives them some state relief that will compensate for what they lose at the federal level. And so the legislation shall apply to taxable years beginning on or after January 1 following the enactment, it says. When is the enactment? We don't know. And so good to see that this bill got approved. I will update you on this, but hopefully sooner than later we can see some states actually push ahead with this and see their companies operating in it actually benefit from it. Probably going to take a lot of time, but maybe one day. So marijuana moment. Second story, New Jersey regulators released new rules for cannabis on-site consumption areas, open public comment period. So just wanted to share this as while New Jersey taking a long time to get their head out of their asses and get their ball rolling, they're at least seeing the benefits of launching the program already. And so you can pause to read the proposed rules as of now, but they are subject to change. I think the main takeaway from this is that the regulators of New Jersey waited so long to launch the program, then after launching realized shit, why did we wait so long? Let's try and drive as much business as possible because of the jobs, the tax revenue, and the sales revenue, and all the benefits it brings to those in New Jersey. And so hopefully it doesn't take that long to get these on-site consumption areas up and running, but good to see them talking about it nonetheless. And so with that, Tom Engel shared on January 18th, so not today, but a few days ago, U.S. Virgin Islands Governor Albert Bryan Jr. signed cannabis legalization and expungement bills into law. Good job, U.S. Virgin Islands. He also issued a separate proclamation creating a process for people to apply to have prior cannabis possession convictions pardoned. And so while I was reading through this, I don't know necessarily when they go into law. Maybe they'll go into law right away, which would be great. But my thought was, is there going to be an adult use market launched? Because obviously that would serve the people in the best interest. And so this is what I got out of it. You can pause to read the whole thing, but the legislation will create an Office of Cannabis Regulation, tasked with issuing cannabis business licenses, overseeing the industry, and setting rules on issues like advertising, packaging, and labeling. There will be several license and permit types, including for cannabis manufacturers, retailers, cultivators, micro-cultivators, testing laboratories, and on-site consumption entities. And so that's really all I got. You can pause to read from here, and then I'll scroll down to another area where you can pause to read. Those are the proposed rules as of right now. from my understanding. But main thing to share with you is that Brian also emphasized the need to legalize, tax, and regulate cannabis to generate revenue amid the economic downturn caused by the pandemic. So the idea seems to be that they will turn to an adult use legal market at some point, which would be in their best interest, and love to see more governors getting their head out of their asses and working for the people that voted them in as opposed to multinational interests. And that is it for today's episode, folks. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for midweek update. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.